Looks like we are back in business. Give me 1 second. Gotta share this to my Reddit folks. They like catching live streams, and I have not been sharing my live streams. 'Cause I know a lot of people don't get. By the way, for those of you who wonder why I take my sharing duty so seriously, is because a lot of people do not get the notifications. But a lot of people love watching live, and we've got to give everybody a fair opportunity to. I try to give everybody a fair opportunity to see the show in the fashion that they would like to see it in. I do short videos, long videos, live videos, pre-recorded videos, all that good stuff. I'm about to go back to uploading in podcast form. So, yeah. We back at it, baby. What's going on, people? Thank you all so much for tuning in to another live stream segment of Mika Says Sukasa. This is debate special day. We're going to do debate stuff, things that we discussed during debates, debate topics, issues surrounding the debates. And today, this segment, I should say, we're going to be covering how TYT has just spent the last 24 hours shamelessly propping up Elizabeth Warren heading into the debates. It's no coincidence that basically Tulsi and Warren are going to be going head to head. And so instead of propping up the message, propping up policies, or at the bare minimum, propping up the actual progressive in this particular debate stage, they decide they want to prop up Warren. They don't really give reason as to why they prop up Warren. And when I mean don't give a reason, of course they give platitudes. TYT. Whenever they don't have, a way to justify their actions, they use platitudes. That's basically what it is. Platitudes and hyperbole. And of course, how else could you prop up boring Warren unless you use platitudes and hyperbole? Because once you start going into the details of the things that she supposedly advocates for, there's really nothing else to discuss. She's not a progressive at heart. She's not a progressive in her legislation. And she's not a progressive, especially when it comes to foreign affairs. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Sorry it took a little bit longer for me to get back than I was expecting. I ended up deciding to go ahead and just bring the tweets off of Twitter so that you all could see the nonsense that I had to deal with last night. So, Emma gave her little piece on Warren. Now, everybody knows Emma loves her some Elizabeth Warren, which is hilarious because in 2017, when she was talking about potential progressive presidential candidates, her favorite candidate was Tulsi. Like, she would not stop talking about Tulsi. Tulsi was her pick. And of course, at that time, I mean, unless you live under a cave, which Emma does not, it was known that Elizabeth Warren was going to run for office. You would have to be kind of slow to not recognize that if you're in the political, sphere. They interviewed Warren. Warren was taking constant interviews. Warren was constantly in the spotlight. I think it was very clear from the battles that she had going back and forth with Trump, trying to keep herself in the limelight, that she was going to be running for office, right? I think everybody could see that. But so in 2017, however, Emma loved Tulsi. Clearly, her tone has changed drastically. Now, Emma had this to say on Twitter. In speaking to Elizabeth Warren supporters, it's clear to me that she has the ability to appeal to centrists as well as progressives. There's an ideological eclectic mix here. She's getting centrist Dems to digest progressivism by connecting her ideology to her personal story. What? No. You think Neera Tanden cares about Elizabeth Warren's personal story? Has Elizabeth Warren, because Neera Tanden loves Elizabeth Warren. Third Way, even. The corporatist group meant to derail the progressive movement, which was basically Center for American Progress, but I guess they haven't been successful enough at it, so they had to invent Third Way. Do you think that Elizabeth Warren's personal experiences are the reason why Neera Tanden still won't advocate for Medicare for all? think that has something to do with it? Maybe. I'm trying to understand what is her experiences. Digest progressivism? We don't need people to digest shit. We need them to advocate and pass progressive policies. You want to digest progressivism? You don't like progress? You got to digest progress? Come on, bruh. I don't want to hear that. But this is Emma trying to serve us a word salad and justify why centrists and the establishment have been backing Elizabeth Warren. Because remember, when it isn't somebody that these particular groups of people, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, whenever it's not somebody they can relate to identity wise, they can see clearly, right? If it's Kamala, how many times has TYT covered the fact that Kamala was the one who was hand selected by Hillary Clinton's team, and what that means, and why and CNN propping her up, and what that means, Joe Biden being propped up by the mainstream, and what that means, Bernie Sanders being suppressed by the mainstream, and what that means. They even kind of what was I about to say? Either way, they've been able to discern when someone's being propped up by the mainstream media, when someone is being favored by the establishment, when someone is loved by the likes of Neera Tanden, when someone is loved by the likes of Joanne Reed, Rachel Maddow, Third Way, Center for American Progress, etc., etc., etc. They've been able to figure out and draw the connection clearly. This candidate is full of it no matter what message they try and put out there to the public. All of a sudden they have no ability to do that. So I had, of course, if you ever follow me on Twitter, which I urge you to do, had some comments, some concerns about this. This is my response to my initial response anyway. I said, I know the Summer Olympics aren't until 2020, but you seriously deserve this. Congrats, you've officially earned the gold medal in mental gymnastics. Because that's literally what she did. There's an eclectic mix here. What? You talking about the mix with identitarianism and centrism? Because that's not what progressivism is. Emma, I got a secret for you. I don't know if you know this, but when you're trying to mix identitarianism with quote-unquote centrism, that's what we call neoliberalism in 2019. That's what it looks like. I don't know what else to tell ya. Yeah. So yeah, you get the gold medal in mental gymnastics. Real quick, let me get to some of these super chats. Hey, it's Ali. Thanks for the super chat. Isn't it weird how TYT's pledge doesn't mention foreign policy? Is it really weird though? Is it though? Cause come on, let's be honest. I want to be as clear about, because I hate when people say don't generalize. If you know what I'm talking about, if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm sorry for you. But if I say it's ran by white people, I mean it's ran by the white power structure that governs the entire world. And however that may look like in any particular situation, any organization or institution. This is ran by a man who used to deny the Armenian genocide and named his network the Young Turks. Are we really all that surprised that the pledge doesn't include foreign policy? Are we really all that surprised that Anna, white, albeit Armenian, that's a nationality, she's white. Cenk, white, albeit Turkish, nationality, still white. Emma, about as Long Island bougie white girl as you can possibly get. Are we really all that surprised? John Idarola, all these people came from privileged backgrounds. Anna and Cenk, I can confirm specifically, came from the mainstream prior to being on TYT. Are we really all that surprised that foreign policy isn't that important to them? People like them aren't getting killed. Well, actually, a lot of people like Anna got killed, but she didn't care about that whenever she befriended Cenk. I guess that's not that important to her. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's not the white power structure that be, in any form it may take. In this case, it looks like Cenk, Anna, and Emma, and John Otter Derola. Why would they care about foreign policy? People like them aren't the ones getting killed. Cool Blue 71, thanks for the super chat. The last time I was impressed by the Young Turks was Emma Vigilan's interview of Brookings Institute Elaine Kamarck about the about the DNC and the superdelegates. Kamarck does not care for democracy. Well, if she works for the Brookings Institute, not really all that surprised by that. Thanks for the super chat, man. Kay, thanks for the super chat. Does Elizabeth Warren have a black agenda? I don't think Elizabeth Warren ever actually mentioned black people until like 2019 when she announced she was running. Despite living in a state that actually, Massachusetts, pretty significant black population, and being a senator. So basically, she's a representative for her entire state, and this has just never been something that has been discussed on her behalf. So I want to go to the next tweet, and so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew. Said, in case people wanted to see a clear example of the term white feminism, here you go. White feminism, aka second wave feminism. If you don't know, this is a term in academia that describes how there are some feminists who are not intersectional. In other words, they do not care if black people, black women, are kept out from having a seat at the table. If Latino women are kept out, if Arab women, Desi women, they don't care if they're kept out of the seat at the table. They're worried about propping up those who look like themselves and making sure that they can climb to the top. I said the same woman who said Tulsi Gabbard isn't who people think she is. This is Emma who said this, with no explanation, by the way. And I said the same woman who said that just tried to justify the establishment choosing to kiss Warren's ass while smearing the woman of color, an actual progressive. So she smeared Tulsi, the Polynesian woman, the Hindu woman, who's of Samoan descent, if I'm not mistaken. And then it's weird because she smeared her about things that she was saying when she was 21, about comments that were taken out of context, and everybody knows that at this point. Basically things that were bent at the will of the establishment, lies that the establishment propped up. The word evolution was unimportant to her or Anna when they were smearing her. Her experiences were unimportant. Tulsi's experiences were unimportant to Emma, Anna. Cenk was nicer to Tulsi, but Emma and Anna specifically, evolution didn't matter. Her family's background didn't matter. And yet Anna, as we all know at this point, went on to do an entire video explaining why we have to understand how people can evolve with their experiences. But only Warren can evolve with her experiences. And only Warren's allowed to not really evolve, just change her affiliation from Republican, to Democrat. That's basically literally all she did. And still vote for the military industrial complex, still take big money from corporations, from billionaires, still be propped up by the establishment, endorse Hillary Clinton instead of Bernie Sanders. And that's evolution. It's okay. We have to understand that Warren has evolved. But Tulsi, she hates the LGBTQ community. She's a war hawk. She's not progressive. She's not progressive with foreign policy. Yeah. That's no discrepancies there. No discrepancies there at all. And it's interesting because if you've been part of this channel, then you've seen me critique Tulsi more than once, especially recently with her Biden tweet. But when, literally, Elizabeth Warren tried to introduce legislation to push for a green bomb deal, like a green military. We have to amplify and boost and increase the military might of the United States to combat climate change. What? and they had absolutely nothing to say about this. It's completely and totally unimportant to them. It's interesting. I can't imagine why they would not mention about, oh yeah, because if you mention that Warren supports green bombs, like maybe people would recognize, oh shit, TYT acts, if they either they don't have knowledge on the current state of foreign policy, the military industrial complex, either they don't understand it or they don't care. And how much are you willing to bet with me that it's the latter? They don't care. They don't care that Warren supports the apartheid state of Israel, which basically is like supporting genocide, because that's literally what it is by definition. Those settlements in Palestine are almost identical, ironically enough, to the Jewish ghettos in Poland and in Germany. And TYT doesn't care that Elizabeth Warren is completely in support of that. Elizabeth Warren justified bombing hospitals and schools. She justified it. She defended it. So, like I said, it's just if anyone is curious about what white feminism looks like, if you have ever been curious, a white woman defending another white woman at all costs, very similar to what we saw with Hillary Clinton. And then it gets even worse, because it may not be as clear to see, right? It may not be as clear to see if we didn't finally have a woman of color in the race to contrast, a progressive woman of color in the race to contrast the treatment. And if you're looking clearly, you can clearly see that they're treating the white woman one way, and they're treating the woman of color who's actually progressive another way. You can say they both made mistakes. You can say they both made missteps. But whose missteps are being forgiven? Who's been allowed to quote unquote evolve on the issues? Okay. By TYT, I mean. Who, by the way, was against LGBT, was against equal rights for marriage in her 40s versus in their 20s, early 20s. And who has evolved more so on that issue? I would imagine it's the woman who has a 100% voting record on the LGBTQ issues and introduced legislation to make the LGBTQ community, before she ran, by the way, she introduced this legislation, protected under the Equal Rights Amendments or the Civil Rights Amendments. So they cannot be discriminated against in the workplace or while shopping to buy a home or anything like that. But who's protected and who's celebrated? Whose legislation gets discussed, but whose legislation is more impactful? Warren's non-legislation gets discussed. Her plans get discussed. The white woman, by the white people, specifically the white women, Emma and Anna. I'm just using them because this is who this video is about at the time. The woman of color is completely ignored and smeared. So if you're curious as to what white feminism looks like, this is academia may go back and look at this like to study it for future generations, because it's like that. This is clear second wave feminism. In other words, it isn't about equity for women, it's about equity for white women. And it isn't even really about equity. It's about the exceptionalism of white women. And these are the facts. Let me get to some of these super chat. Hey, it's Ali. Thanks for the super chat. Man, you've been showing a lot of love this morning. I appreciate it. I remember when TYT promoted the war in Libya. And I remember that too. And I even cut them some slack on that because a lot of people got Libya wrong. And yet they did not learn from their mistakes. And that's the problem. Hey, it's Ali with the second super chat. Tulsi somewhat promoted Russiagate in a new video on YouTube. It worries me. It was about election integrity, but she was kind of promoting Russiagate. I know what she was doing. If you would let me clarify that. And I haven't seen the video, but I'm pretty good at guessing what's happening because I've talked to them enough. She's not promoting Russiagate. what she is saying is that if everybody is so worried about election integrity, right? If we're really worried about Russia hacking our elections, which, by the way, not Russia, well, not just Russia, probably China as well, we actually should start worrying about it. And I don't mean that because Russia is some evil doer. I mean that because the United States is provoking Russia by engaging in cyber warfare as we speak. And I'm going to do another video about this probably tomorrow, but not today because I want to focus on debate stuff today. Do y'all know that a reporter from the New York Times straight up said that the government is doing cyber warfare? We're trying we're testing out on all these countries because we want to be able to hack in his words, we want to make sure that somebody like Maduro doesn't get elected again. We literally are saying we want to hack other people's elections. We want to hack other people's elections. He said this on a podcast. Heard this from the government after we just whined and complained about Russia hacking our elections. But nobody in the Democratic Party has had an issue with us conducting unwarranted cyber warfare in Russia. So what she is saying is, so that is something we have to worry about now. They might retaliate. Once again, I'm not going to get into the semantics of whether or not they're justified in doing so, but they really might retaliate. Because that's what you would expect from a superpower. So what she is saying is, how about we leave no room for a foreign power at all, period? I don't care what their name is, foreign or domestic powers, to involve themselves and corrupt our electoral process. Just pass my legislation and we're good. It's current American Election Act. So she's trying to basically help centrists understand that there is an actual solution out there in case they have not been paying attention. So thanks for the super chat. Good question, by the way. Is Kyle still a part of TYT? I actually think that I think he's still as friends with people. He left amicably, but to my understanding, Kyle is not an official part of the network anymore. And it's weird because I think that it actually makes sense because as soon as Jimmy and Kyle left TYT's network, once again, weird, Jimmy and TYT's numbers both went up. Or excuse me, Jimmy and Kyle Kalinski's numbers both went up after they left. And if I recall, they left around the same time at the beginning of this year, the end of last year. Once again, still friends with a lot of the people that are part of the network to a degree, but to my understanding, he's not an official part of the network anymore. Thanks for the super chat once again. Bethlehem, what's going on? Thanks for the super chat. I hope Tulsi will destroy Warren. I can't stand that woman. You and me both, dearest sister. You and me both. David Reinhardt, thanks for the super chat. Much love. So let me go to the next tweet because it gets better. So, I urge you all to go check out this tweet that she did because a lot of you would probably enjoy it. So she goes on to say, somebody asked a legitimate question. And so I question how well she's doing with progressives, as you should if you're in the progressive movement and you're paying attention at all. They go on to say, there's so much skepticism about her from the progressive wing of the party. I don't know, maybe because she betrayed Bernie, she betrayed the progressive movement, she props up the military-industrial complex, she supports genocide in Palestine, she supported overthrowing Maduro, she backed the Trump administration on more than one occasion, she votes for the military budget on every occasion. Every single occasion. So what's up? Maybe that's why? Instead of introducing a plan to cancel college debt, she only does $50,000. Instead of Medicare for all, she advocates for capping medication at $500 a month. Who can afford that? Maybe because she's not progressive. Maybe because she's going to take corporate money in the general. She's taking it her entire career. She disingenuously transferred corporate money and PAC money to her presidential account, knowing that she fundraised that with other politicians who take corporate PAC money. Maybe because she takes money from billionaires. Maybe because Neera Tanden props her up. Maybe because CNN props her up. Maybe because MSNBC props her up. Maybe that's why, just out of curiosity, like, I don't know. I'm kind of new at this. I don't know necessarily, but those seem like things that would be cause for concern, as the Tulsi haters like to say. Maybe that's why. But Emma's response to this was interesting. because she didn't actually give an analysis. She didn't provide details. She said, it's from loud people online. There are two problems with this statement. That's not true. See, Emma is involved in the circle, the Democratic circles, right? Those are the circles she runs in. She's pretty limited to the Democratic Party. She follows Warren around. She talks to supporters who are going to go see Warren. And the places she goes to, dominantly white people in the room. The places she goes to, of course they're going to like Warren. They're establishment. We already know Democrats like Warren. But Democrats are not progressives. Progressives decide the outcome of these Democratic primaries, in case you didn't know. Progressives are the ones that the Democrats have to cheat and scheme and lie to in order to get a victory in any given state, in any given precinct. Progressives are the ones who determine the conversations. And not all progressives are Democrats. One, just because you like Warren, the skepticism from progressives has always been there. Even the progressives who kind of like Warren, even those who kind of like her are skeptical about it. They're like, man, I can't really forget about what she did in 2016. That corporate money, kind of an issue. The horrible foreign policy, the green military, all that stuff, kind of an issue for us. Even the ones who kind of like her. There are some people who still want to like Warren. I don't like her. I don't do fake people. I find it weird that some of my colleagues were okay with her even. Because I'm like, even in my life, I gotta, can't keep close friends like that, because if you can't see right through Warren, I'm judging you. I'm judging your ability to properly adjudicate whether or not someone is real or fake in your life. And so if someone's going to bring solutions or problems to your life, if you cannot see clearly through Warren. I'm not saying people who are just kind of casually watching politics, I get that. But people who are in politics have been in the trenches, done their research, and they're like, but Warren's kind of nice, right? She's kind of cool. She's good, right? She's second to Bernie, right? Yeah, okay. But I will say this as well. I'm on the ground, Emma, like you, except for I'm an activist, not just a reporter, as most of you all know. That's what I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 days. Activism. I'm going to do some activism today before I go to the debates. There's some DNC protesters going to be outside. That's exclusive news. Nobody knows that, but it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. I'm going to speak there. Those are the ones you have to win over. Those are the progressives, not the people waving Warren signs. They just adopted the name progressive because they didn't want to be codified as a neoliberal. That's basically your only two options in 2019. You're not progressive, Emma. You're at best liberal, but because of your complete ignorance and naivety on foreign policy, you're not progressive. You don't care about it. You can be liberal and not be progressive, but you are actually reaching the point, once again, of what I like to call neoliberal light. You, Anna, Cenk, where you just say, but I like Bernie, before you spew the same bipartisan duopolist bullshit that the Republican and Democratic Party spew. And tell us to fall in line, just like the Democratic and Republican Party. The people that I'm talking to today, progressives, a lot of them, the ones who organize, the ones who actually put their feet on the ground and change the conversation, Emma, they despise Warren. That's a pretty stark contrast from people being okay with her. There are a few, I ain't gonna say there's not a lot of people because it's a big country and she's running for president. A lot of people probably like Warren. They're not progressive necessarily. Most of them are the Hillary supporters who wanted Warren to run to begin with. Then there are people who are about her. She's there, I guess, whatever, that's cool. Then there is everybody else. Everybody else, they hate Warren because they're educated. They hate Warren because they've done their research. They hate Warren because they were actually involved in 2016. Rather than from pontificating from behind the desk, staying in your little TYT bubble, they were involved in 2016. They were involved. They saw their votes getting taken away. They saw their legwork being, completely stripped away from them. All the things that they had done to ensure that Bernie Sanders and other progressives across the country won. Oh, and in Florida specifically, this is Tim Canova country. And they remember all too well what the Democratic Party has done and what Warren didn't do to stop it from happening, even though she knew it was rigged and never called it out. And then endorsed Hillary in a rigged election. Hey, those are the people who change the outcome of elections, in case you didn't know. Because everybody else can be indifferent, but indifference means you haven't made a decision. When those people start knocking on doors, when those people start phone banking, when those people who are educated start telling the truth, guess what happens? See, I have family, friends, people I meet in stores, things like that have heard Warren's name because they've heard it literally brought up on the news all the time in the last month. She's the flavor of the month. Because Biden is spiraling out of control. Buttigieg is now done, as I said would happen the moment that all that stuff that he didn't do or did as a mayor came to light and with the black communities. Everything we've predicted here is coming true. Kamala, done. Beto, done. Now, Warren is in Survivor right now. All of them are, really. We're on the Survivor Island. Warren is the last neoliberal left. You do understand, like, she was their last resort. That's what should worry you. Because they knew she could not beat Trump. They knew that her folly with going toe-to-toe with Trump over this Native American stuff, they knew that was going to be problematic, and they know that she can't beat Trump in the debate. They know all this stuff. But she's their last resort. Seriously. And so because of that, you have seen them prop her up. But that's not, the people pushing back are not progressives who are loud online. It's everybody. And then everybody else is indifferent to Warren, who are going to be persuaded by those who are angry at Warren. Why are they angry? Because they've done their research, and they will educate others on exactly why Warren is not. And there's more indifferent people about Warren than anything. I would rather people hate me or love me. Indifference is the worst possible position to be in when you're talking about electoral politics and when you're talking about the presidential election specifically. And even if they were only online, Emma, there's a reason that David Brock has an entire plan to muddy the conversation online, to convince people that there are more centrists than progressives, to convince people that more can't. There's a reason that Barack Obama ran damn near his entire campaign online. There's a reason that Trump campaigned and won 280 characters at a time. There's a reason that people hire entire social media teams. There's a reason that they try and convince. If you can't win that online conversation, if you can't win that social media conversation in a federal election, you can't win. These are facts. That's why AOC is having to teach classes on Twitter to her fellow congresspeople, because it's that important. So loud people online are the votes you need. Those are the people you need to convince, Emma. In case you don't know how these electoral politics work, which I get, I understand. Let me read some of these super chats before I move on. Man, y'all showing a lot of super chat love. I greatly appreciate it. You said, hey, it's Ali. I think Kyle is still a part of TYT network because I think Cenk said they were adding secular talk to their podcast. Oh, so maybe they are going, maybe rejoin. I don't know. Quite possibly. Gabriel Kari, thanks for the super chat. Corporate bought sellout. Is a corporate bought sellout? Enough said. Money out of politics. That's a hard hashtag to read. I don't know why. The words just not blend well. Keep it up. Keep up the good work, Nico. Thank you very much. Ebo Jesus, what's going on? Thanks for the super chat. Tell Tulsi to surf on him. I'm gonna tell Tulsi to swag and surf on him. I swag when I serve. Now watch me surf and swag. Okay. No middle ground. Damn right. Hey, it's Ali. Thanks for the super chat. You show a lot of love this morning. I greatly appreciate it. By the way, Ali, you've actually already met the minimum threshold. Like if you were a Patreon donor to do $50, if you do $50 Patreon donations for 2 consecutive months, then you get a Skype conversation. So if you want to have a Skype, because you've literally met that on super chats, I think just this morning. So if you want to set up a Skype conversation with me for some time this week, or not this week, but next week or this month, please DM me on Twitter and let me know. And we can set that right up for you. I appreciate all the super chat love that you've been giving. Who do you think is the most neoliberal progressive? Pac-Man. Well, it depends. I don't even think Pac-Man's a progressive at all. I think at least TYT and Cedar and Progressive Voice, they're good at pretending they're progressive. I think Progressive Voice, honestly, if I'm being fair, is the most progressive out of them. But Pac-Man, I don't know what's progressive about him at this point. I legitimately don't know. He's started equivocating on Medicare for all. He's defended Biden many times. Said he likes Biden. Defends Warren. Attacks Tulsi. Smeared Tulsi. So, what's happening with Tim Canova? Tim is actually supposed to be at the official Tulsi watch party tonight. So, we'll see. I'm going to talk to him and see if I can get an interview with him. TYT is a Democratic partisan propaganda outlet. You're right. They are the literal definition of sheepdog. Shout out from NC the 910 26 Vietnam, in case people are wondering where I'm from. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the love. All right. So, let's move on. Cenk. You know Cenk wasn't going to disappoint us because it's what Cenk does. Cenk always seems to figure out a way to take his foot, slap some hot sauce on it, rotisserie style, bakes it, slow. He lets it marinate before he takes that foot, all rotisserie styled and baked and slabbed up and lathered up in hot sauce and barbecue sauce. He takes that foot, he puts it in his mouth every single time without fail. So we knew. All right. So Cenk had this to say. Note to media. Everyone agrees that Elizabeth Warren's rise in the polls was because of all of her great policy proposals. So you might want to, 1, focus on the substance, and 2, realize progressive policies are popular. This is why I really question sometimes the competence of some of these people who have never worked in politics and who don't work in politics. Handing out a progressive pledge, by the way, does not count as activism. Cenk, it took you 2 minutes to type up that pledge. Everyone agrees that Elizabeth Warren's rise in the polls was because of all her great policy proposals. No. First of all, who's everyone? Not me. Not most progressives. Anyone who has an understanding of how the polls work and how the mainstream and how the establishment works understand this. Polls are not reflective of the facts. Polls disproportionately oversample older voters with landlines. Some of them don't necessarily oversample landlines now, but they still oversample older voters, and they recycle their lists. They ask people, and also, fun fact, if you didn't know, Democratic internal polling is not necessarily the same and usually will not reflect external polling. They keep those internal polls inside. No one agrees that Elizabeth Warren's, that's not an agreement. That is not like you can't just expect that. And let me be very clear about something. Anybody who has known me, like you can ask any of my significant others, you can ask my family, my friends. One thing I despise is this unnecessary, when they're using it in a serious way, right? When you're trying to convince someone of your argument and you don't have any logic, so you sensationalize. I can't stand hyperbole in situations like this. I can't stand it. And that's all Cenk. Cenk is literally the most hyperbolic, and I mean that literally. I meant that seriously at that point. He's literally the most hyperbolic pundit in the progressive world, because there is time after time after time after time after time, he's shown that because he cannot argue his points with logic and reasoning, with the facts, with the statistics, with basic analysis, he has to, everyone agrees. No, that's not even close to true. If everyone agreed on that, then she would be somewhat tied with Bernie. Duh. But that's not the case. No one agrees on that. What most people who are in the progressive world, right? Because let's be honest, everyone, that would have to include Republicans, Democrats, neoliberals, neoliberalites, progressives, independents. No, that's not even close. At best, you're talking about Democrats. And at even, maybe if we narrow it down, you're talking about neoliberals. Because progressives who study and understand what these polls actually reflect know Warren's rise in the polls is emblematic of everyone else's rise in the polls over the last 6 months. Who rose in the polls first? Kamala, because the media covered her. Then she dropped in the polls. Why? Because the media covered her. Stopped covering her. Who rose in the polls next? Was it Beto was the next in line, right? Beto, who quickly shrank in the polls because the media stopped covering him. Beto. Biden rose in the polls, and he is kind of maintaining. But like in reality, we already know he's about to start fading into the darkness, and then they will stop covering him. Booker rose for a day, kind of. He gone immediately, so that don't count. Buttigieg even rise to stardom, steady. They were trying to build him up in case Biden failed miserably, and then he was kind of crashing almost immediately, and he is done now. He's done. So who's next? The last person in line who has any type of traction is Warren. Any type of traction. So of course, Warren's rise in the polls is reflective of what? Being propped up by Neera Tanden, Joanne Reed, Rachel Maddow, TYT, other mainstream sources, other establishment sources. Because of her likability. That's one thing we can't take away from her, unfortunately. She is a likable person to some people. I don't like people like Elizabeth Warren. I actually despise people like Elizabeth Warren, if I'm being completely and totally frank. I don't like fakeness. I can't stand it. But the facts are the facts. Elizabeth Warren's likable and they're using it. Because they know that old grandma-ish white women can get away with a lot more. Hillary took over an entire country in Haiti, started a coup in Honduras. And people were saying, well, she had to do all that. Look, she's around men all the time. It's the only way she could succeed. She had to be responsible for a slave trade in Libya because she's a woman. How else was she going to succeed? She's a flavor of the month. Her rise in the polls is emblematic of that. Oh, I have a plan. You think that's what caused her rise in the polls? She's been saying that. And she's riding that wave because that's what y'all are going with, is that she has a plan. Then he goes on to say, once again, focus on substance. Really? Okay, I don't know if I'll spend another 2 hours talking about that, but let's just say I'm going to cover that in another tweet, in the last tweet that I have. I said, and then he goes on to say, realize progressive policies are popular. Progressive policies are popular, but that's not why they should realize progressive policies are popular. That's the worst. You're trying to say that $50,000 cancellation of student debt when the average, I just covered this yesterday, the average cost of medical school, which is probably once again a modest estimation, $33,000 per year in 2017 for public school, for medical school, 50 something, 53-ish for private school. The best schools in the country, basically. Let's be clear. I consider the medical profession pretty damn important to our society. $50,000 a year wouldn't begin to put a dent in the total cost. Because if you're going to a top 5 medical school, it's likely because you're coming from a top 5, top 10 public school or private school. Before that, you're leaving $500,000, $600,000 in debt, $500,000 or more in debt. You think $50,000? Up to $50,000, by the way, not $50,000. Up to $50,000. That's progressive. That is not really what we would call progressive. Bernie's plan is, though, not getting rid of lobbying, but instead increasing lobbying transparency. That's progressive. No, that's what, once again, we call basic bookkeeping and clerical work. Warren hasn't introduced one piece of progressive legislation. Her plan to address climate change was to bolster the military. You are aware of this. Warren wanted to overthrow Maduro, as a recording from the Huffington Post revealed to us. This is once again I'm not really sure what its initial point doesn't match the conclusion, is my point that I'm trying to make here. Real quick, let me go ahead and get some of these super chats. Big Irv, what's going on? TYT is so trash. Can't believe people still supporting Elizabeth Warren. I'll feel I've shared your video on her like 100 times. Keep sharing it. Keep sharing it. We want that to be the first video that people look up when people Google Elizabeth Warren. The Breakfast Club interview with Elizabeth Warren was cringe. Thanks E. Bejozes for the super chat. I keep hearing it. I haven't watched it. I haven't brought myself to watch it yet because I've been prepared for these debates. But I'm going to, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be hilarious. And I'm going to be covering, you're going to be seeing some stuff if you're a friend of the channel that a lot of you all have already known, but there are going to be a lot more people paying attention to what independent media is saying after tonight and tomorrow. So you might see some rehash of things that you've already known, but I haven't covered individually. So just be prepared for that, because I want to activism, right? Y'all already know this broadcast journalism is just another form of my activism. My activism, first and foremost, is education. And so I want to equip you all with the ability to educate. So we're going to have some quick videos between myself and the Convo Couch where we're educating people. We're going to put out the truth about Warren and others. We're going to put out the truth about Tulsi and Bernie. But Warren especially, Buttigieg as well, because we have to rehash some of these things because people didn't know. And they're going to hear the questions that are used, that are going to be asked. They're going to hear the answers. The questions are going to be softballs. Warren's probably going to hit it out of the park. But we're going to be here to tell the truth. And so you're going to see a lot of rehash. A lot of things I haven't covered about Warren specifically because I've been waiting for this moment. Hey, it's Ali. Thanks for the super chat. TYT should have at least stopped promoting Warren once Bernie started one-upping her and when he started going after her. You would think that. Tulsi and Bernie should try not to appeal to liberals and focus on independence, swaying some libertarians and conservative. I think that Tulsi has, for the most part, been doing that. Bernie has been somewhat appealing to liberals. But I will say this: Bernie has changed his tune a little bit. He's been coming after these people. He's not been letting them walk all over him. And I think he's kind of starting to realize, like, hold up, man, y'all tripping. Y'all not about to give my entire brand away to somebody else and think I'm not going to dig in y'all behinds for this copyright infringement. I also tweeted out yesterday that campaigns like Elizabeth Warren's campaign is the reason that false advertising laws exist, because she literally will sit there and tell you to your face something is progressive, something is anti-corruption, and it's not. It's not. I'm going to go in this last tweet. This is my tweet. Follow me on Twitter in case you have not. TYT literally spent the entire day running full court press for Warren, clearly to boost her for the debates. This is what I tweeted out last night. Not to mention, I said they did not mention Securing America's Elections Act, Stop Arming Terrorists Act, No More Presidential Wars Act, All Fossil Fuels Act, and Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act. And I go on to say in another tweet right after that they didn't talk about it yesterday. They haven't talked about it at all. And I wonder if it has anything to do with whose legislation it is. In case you don't know, all those pieces of legislation, who was also in the debate today, same debate as Elizabeth Warren, on the same stage as Elizabeth Warren. Although Securing America's Election. Hey, question, really quick. TYT's pledge say anything at all about election integrity? At all? No, it does not. At all. So maybe, just maybe, Tulsi hasn't signed this progressive pledge because she is not going to attach her name, just like the Green New Deal. She's not going to attach her name to a spectacle. She's not going to attach her name to an empty piece of paper that uses the progressive label to prop up not moderation, but centrism. And empty promises that don't have actionable bills, people, bills. We need bills, laws, legislation. Systemic change is what we need. That means addressing two things. First and foremost, military industrial complex, election integrity. Everything else will not happen until we do both. Ironically enough, the pledge has neither of those things. And people are saying, why has Tulsi not signed the TYT pledge? First of all, who made TYT the gatekeeper for progressives? What? TYT has gotten it wrong on almost every major issue since 2016. They lost their most progressive journalists. They fired a plethora of other progressive journalists. TYT isn't on the ground unless it's some major event that they can get a lot of face time from. And they're not there as activists. They're not there to expose necessarily the truth. They had journalists that used to do stuff like that. They're there as reporters, like MSNBC, like CNN, the same way that they're there. I'd be having to change my shirt. I'm gonna have to do that today. I had to change my shirt because I'm going out there as a Tulsi activist today. After that, I'll be an election integrity activist again, as you all know. After that, I'll be at the debates as a spectator and a reporter. After that, I'll be at the Tulsi Gabbard watch party. After that, I will objectively report on the debates. The next day, I will objectively report on those debates. Believe it or not, you can actually do all of those things. But you have to be principled, and you have to have integrity to be objective. And more so, which I think, and everybody, once again, everybody understands this and they know this about this network. You are not allowed on this network. You cannot be part of this network at the MCSC network unless you are an activist. We don't have time for people seeking to boost their own brand just for the sake of boosting it to make a quick dollar, because that makes you inconsistent in your principles. We want activists. Because as you can see, the difference between us and almost every other network, except for those, or at least, every other journalist and broadcast journalist on YouTube, except for those journalists who are activists like Jimmy, like Tim Black, like Ron Placone, like Graham Elwood, and a few others, we're all activists. Which is why, without even talking to each other, you notice most of the time we have the same opinions. And it's not like we don't collaborate with each other before we do these videos. Wonder if the activism has something to do with that. I wonder if Ron going on tour for net neutrality, Jimmy going to Europe to investigate how they're treating Julian Assange and rigging elections here. I wonder if me participating in electoral integrity, along with Tim Canova, I wonder if Pasta and Fiorella exposing corruption in the Democratic Party of California, I wonder if all of that has something to do with our perception on politics and strategy. Talking to people on the ground every day. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Really quick. There are people who have always asked, before we go, there are people who have constantly asked, well, what's happened to TYT? What's going on with TYT? What is this? What is this? I want really quick. I just pulled this article up. I feel like it's just so important to talk about. And I haven't actually talked about it. I bring it up in passing. I bring it up while I'm joking, but I want to be very clear about this. TYT is not independent. It is not appropriate to continue to call them independent journalists because you are factually wrong. And I'm going to explain why. This is the Business Insider. August 8th, 2017. Progressive media outlet The Young Turks has raised $20 million in venture capitalist funding and plans to double its staff. Isn't that interesting that they plan to double their staff and they end up firing their progressive journalists because of money issues? Interesting. So before we begin to the article, that statement alone, people, means when you go to get 20 million from a venture capitalist firm, you are not independent. You are simply CNN or MSNBC on YouTube. That's it. That's it. The Young Turks, one of the longest running progressive digital video outlets, announced a major round of funding on Tuesday. The firm's 3L Capital Ventures, Graycroft, E Ventures, and Winderco, which is led by the business executive and Democratic Party kingmaker Jeffrey Katzenberg. Can I say that again for people who didn't get it? The firm's 3L Capital, Graycroft, E Ventures, and Winderco, which is led by executive and Democratic Party kingmaker Jeffrey Katzenberg, will invest $20 million in the Progressive Media Company, which for a decade has live streamed hours of video with a progressive perspective. We've got the content side figured out pretty well, ranked number 1 in the news vertical in all the rankings, but it's time to build out the rest of the business. Cenk, a co-founder and host, said in an interview with the Business Insider. So this is what the article goes on to say. The Young Turks, which has been funded through advertising revenue, like every YouTuber, paid subscriptions, once again, YouTubers, partnerships with venture capitalists, that's interesting, and even crowdfunding, plans to double the size of its newsroom. Once again, as you all know, they plan to double the size of the newsroom, but as you all recall, the progressives, for the most part, got fired. Specifically, weirdly enough, the progressives associated directly with exposing the DNC. Naomi, what's her name? Not Naomi. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Oh my goodness, I cannot remember her name now. The woman from New York that was part of the DNC Unity Commission. Hell, even Jordan Sheridan, even though I don't like the guy, he exposed, but he got fired for a different reason, but he exposed a lot of the DNC corruption. Who else got fired? A few people got fired, bro. A few people got fired. Also, they already had partnerships with venture capitalists in the past, which also, by definition, means they're not independent. Once again, Uyghur said that the company would focus much of its investment on filling out the Young Turks' back-end tech and sales needs. The 3L Capital's Sean Kolo told Business Insider the funding was partially billed towards helping the outlet expand its creative marketing offerings, including live events. So there you have it. No Miki, thank you. There you have it, people. 20 million from a Democratic Party lawmaker, or kingmaker, Katzenberg, like the number one donor of the Democratic Party. No longer independent. After they get this money, shortly after, almost immediately after they take the 20 million, they start firing people. One of the last firings, I believe, was Nomiki Kantz. After she actually, much to my surprise, admittedly, I had to give her a lot of props on this because I was doubtful. She didn't get superdelegates completely taken away, but Nomiki, with the help of the Unity Commission, did make some huge changes to the superdelegate system. That they made progress in that regard. Once again, I was surprised and I had to give her props. But right after that change happened, they got rid of Nomiki too. She hasn't said anything negative about TYT, of course. She hasn't said anything positive about them. She hasn't been sharing their videos. She hasn't been propping them up. Because I'm sure she'll need them at some point. I don't really care about them. $20 million. Progressives fired. Elizabeth Warren all of a sudden is a progressive, and Tulsi, on the same token, is not a progressive. Foreign policy not included on their progressive pledge. Securing American elections, election integrity, in other words, not included on that progressive pledge, but the Green New Deal is. The Green New Deal is a resolution, incomplete at that. The OFF Act, the best climate change legislation out, not even talked about or discussed. 20 million, a bunch of what the fuck happening. That's basically what's happening. If you're trying to understand, I'm not going to say all of it's because of the 20 million, but it becomes a lot easier if you want to keep your job and keep your money to start wavering a little bit in some of your opinions. You start seeing people around you get fired when you got bills to pay. You start, well, maybe Warren ain't that bad. Maybe I can warm up to Warren. Maybe Tulsi isn't all I thought she was. Like I said, I'm a Vigilant 2 years ago, was looking forward to Tulsi. Loved her. Got to keep my job, though. And if I can get somebody that looks like me in office, that'll work too. So thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Got a couple of more debate-centered segments coming out. Make sure you stick around about 10-15 minutes, and I will be back. See you soon. And always remember, with anything else, if I don't see you later, find your balance. Peace.